welcome back to Sacred Health. I'm Carolyn, and today we get to interview Ivy Darnell. So, Ivy is a mental health and holistic wellness coach. She has been through mental health struggles her entire life and now uses her experience to educate others on mental health awareness. She helps facilitate growth by helping clients achieve mental health related goals, build resilience, and develop positive coping strategies. She's also the host of the Gentle Growth with Ivy podcast. Hi, Ivy.
Hi, thank you. I feel like you introduced myself better than I could.
Yeah, well, thanks. I'm glad that worked out.
Yeah,
We were just talking about technical issues
yeah.
and how basically it's like usually, at least for me, it's like the times I have to show up and like make things go smooth, things don't go smooth.
hmm
So
Yeah.
I want to tie this into like I have a note on here to talk about resiliency.
hmm
Um, Learning how to be resilient through obstacles. I definitely want to touch on that today. And it's just funny how this happened right before we started talking.
It's funny. Yeah.
You just
I
have to
mean,
go with the
resiliency
flow.
is huge. And that's kind of like something I like to kind of embrace my name, Ivy, with however I can. And something that the ivy plant is known for is being able to grow in pretty much any environments, under any conditions. And it's just like always thriving. So that's something that I try to help my clients with as well. So resiliency, it fits right in there.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's so fitting. I think that like it's funny how things tie together that your name
hmm
is Ivy and now you've kind of grown into this woman who is resilient and has went through events, which we'll talk more about, in a minute, and like how you're using those experiences to help other people
hmm
and grow from them. So that name fits you very well.
Thank you. Thank you. I think so too.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess my first question is tell me about your first struggles with mental health growing up, um, and just I guess how this started for you.
Yeah. So my first struggles, I mean, I've struggled literally pretty much my whole life. I remember having my first panic attack before I was even 5 years old. I was like somewhere between, 4 and 5. And it was just my mom was going into the store and I was sitting out in the car alone, which back then was like very common and normal.
Yeah.
You don't do it nowadays, but
Hmm.
back then it was very normal and not something that most kids would freak out over. And so that's what I did is I kind of that was so common and she would do it, but it would freak me out like every time. And just kind of like separation anxiety and stuff like that. And then my depression kicked in my early teens, preteens, definitely before I was 13. And so even before that, for just the anxiety, my mom would take me to a therapist and stuff. And they resorted it to like my grandma watching Cops or whatever, the show Cops.
Hmm.
But so therapy and like their suggestions just didn't work. I still had anxiety. And then depression came along and the same thing happened. I went to the doctor, we had some ideas and none of them really worked. And then I went to therapy once I got in my kind of like teen years, I think. And again, like some things helped, but not much. And around whenever I turned about 16, somewhere between 13 and 16, I can't remember exactly. I was put on medication for my depression. And again, it was just like it was even really a band-aid. Like it didn't do much. And I mean it continued on forever. Um, and so yeah, my anxiety and depression was just like really bad for a really long time. I took several medications. I took like a high dosage anxiety medication 3 times a day, every day. And I was still having panic attacks. It was not fun. I thought I had some things under control. And then I finally decided to get pregnant whenever I was 24, 25. And I had my baby during COVID and my depression and anxiety, because I mean, it comes with postpartum.
Hmm.
And then my already pre-existing conditions. Sorry, I have my window open and I live in the
Oh, it's
country,
fine.
so
It's okay.
but the depression anxiety just got so much worse. And so I was like, okay, I need to see a therapist and a good one. Um, and so in the past, I had thought that I had PTSD, but I spoke with a therapist, and even though he couldn't handle my story, he said that it wasn't traumatic enough to be diagnosed with PTSD. So I was like, okay, whatever, go on about my life. And so I always kind of wondered about PTSD, and then I also would always joke around about having ADHD, but I wasn't the type of person to like bounce off the walls and stuff. It was always kind of like thrown out because I wasn't actually hyperactive in that way. But then after I had my baby and I was like really serious about getting better, I spoke with a therapist and she diagnosed me with anxiety, depression, PTSD, and sorry, I'm drawing a blank right now. ADHD. There we go. As my symptoms are showing through. So I was diagnosed with all that, and I felt like so doomed because I don't know, it felt like at that point I had tried everything and nothing was working. And I have my baby and she's the best thing ever. And I want to be the best for her. And at that time, it felt like I just wasn't. And it hurt. And that's whenever I was like, okay, gotta get better. So I listened to my therapist, and something that was really special about my therapist, we did a lot of, past work and working through traumas and stuff. Um, but she was really special to me, and we really connected because she had been through a lot of the same situations. And so she was able to kind of like coach me in a way because she was able to apply her experiences and the things that helped her. And with that, I got better, like so much better. And she was like, you should really try life coaching and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't know about all that. And then I decided that I was gonna be like a self-care influencer or whatever because self-care has been pretty big for me, and self-love and stuff like that. But it was really weird. And so then I went into like mindset coaching, and I was like, it's still a little bit more. Um, sorry, I don't know what's going on with my voice today, but anyway. And then I said, oh, mental health coaching because I was like, you know what? That is something I've struggled with for a really long time. I'm so sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
Something I struggled with for a really long time, and I feel like I really overcome it. And I learned a lot, and I've applied a lot, and I've helped a lot of people along the way too, because I've always been the person that people come to when they have issues. I've always been just the go-to friend that people could trust and rely on. And I was always helping people even before myself. And so talking with my therapist, things that helped her, and I'm like, you know what? These are things that I've told people to do too. So might as well try it. And I learned a lot, and I want to share as much as I can with other people in hopes that they can help themselves too.
Yeah,
Mm.
that's wonderful. And like I think, well, I have a lot of questions, I guess, bouncing off of that.
Yeah.
Because back, I think we're close to the same age. But like uh, when we were younger, this was like a whole different thing.
Hmm.
Mental health was not discussed in school. I mean, like
No.
vaguely from what I can remember, for like counseling class, like it was more so just like learning about um just like be nice to people kind of thing, but like
Yeah.
not really in detail about like mental health. Even the term
Hmm.
mental health, like that wasn't a thing that I
No.
was ever taught. Dealing with your emotions like healthfully, that was not discussed.
It's like all about suppressing them.
Yeah, just kind of like
Yeah.
get through the day type. Like I don't even know. Like now, as I'm saying this, I'm trying to actually think back. Like what was I taught? There's different
Like
character traits, but
nothing.
it wasn't like how do you actually implement anything for yourself,
No.
which is wild to me. So like no
Yeah.
wonder why we have a huge generation of people
Yeah.
like not knowing how to deal with anything um
Yeah.
at
And I
all.
think for a long time, I mean, back in the day, people were just like so hard. I mean, it wasn't even until like the early 1900s that people understood that kids had a different like mindset than adults. Like they really thought,
Yeah, like their brains were the same. Like there's no.
yeah, they really thought they were just like little adults. And so they were really hard on them for a long time. And then like we were
Mhm.
taught how to like suppress those emotions. And so we have like a lot of traumatized people traumatizing us. And, now I really think COVID played a big part in people like self-reflecting.
Mhm.
And they're like, oh my goodness, like this is an issue. And, things like ADHD diagnosis and depression and anxiety, all those diagnoses have really like risen up. And I mean, there's a lot going on, but there's a lot of
Mhm.
self-reflection too, where we can think about how we're feeling and how we're impacted and how we can get better. And it's like becoming more of a thing now to
Mhm.
focus on your brain and yourself.
Yeah, it's way more normalized, thankfully.
Hmm.
Um, I guess I have a couple questions. I mean, they're kind of gonna not be related, but the first one is for those people who aren't familiar with panic attacks or maybe have never experienced one, um, how would you describe what that is like?
Ooh, it can be different for everyone, and there's a lot of different like ways that you can describe it. Um, but for me, something that I always noticed was like almost like this ball in my throat, where like it almost felt like my throat was kind of like swelling up, and my breathing would get like more like rapid, but I don't know, my breathing would just be different. And then also there was like a tingle in my entire body, and it kind of like started from the center and then tingled its a whole way out. And so my breathing would be different. My whole body had this weird feeling. My brain would be racing and just thinking of like the worst case scenario. Sweating. I've had heart palpitations. I've almost fainted several times. Thankfully, I've never fainted, but I've came very close to it sometimes. And it's a really, really heightened like fight and flight mode.
Mhm.
Um, and usually I would be flight, like I wanted to get out of here right now.
Mhm.
Um, and like the only thing that would calm me down was to, like actually go into the kind of like a darker place. And I would have to like shake out my hands or like move my body around. Now I can take some walks and stuff. But it's like an overwhelming amount of energy like surging through my body. That's how it is for me.
Mhm. Like adrenaline, kind of? Would you say
Oh
that?
yeah,
Mhm.
for sure.
That sounds scary.
Yeah, it's
Like,
not fun.
or just like your, I mean, I've had a panic attack,
Yeah.
um, and I've heard people, talk about it, and it's like you feel like some people feel like they're dying, like they don't know what's going
Hmm.
on, and it's
There's a lot of people that go to the emergency room for it.
because it's
Yeah.
just so different and scary, and it's like thankfully now that the verbiage of panic attacks and people learning more about these types of things, like it gives you, I guess, reassurance that maybe it's not like a life-threatening thing like you might
Hmm.
have initially thought, but
Yeah.
it
Which
is.
in itself helps. Because when you're
Mhm.
like, okay, I'm not dying, you can, breathe and stuff.
Mhm.
Breath work has been a huge help too, just focusing on my breath. Sorry, my
Yeah,
cat is now making noise.
it's okay. Yeah, but and that's yes, breath work and breathing is something I try to remind myself of, and it's
Hmm.
something I try to teach my kids now that I've had the awareness of it and just
Hmm.
even just the scientific like knowledge of like how does oxygen affect your body and your brain, and when you're lacking oxygen, how does your body respond, which is like it freaks the fuck out and panics
Right.
and like so that's hyperventilating during
Hmm.
moments of stress, like that's going to make it worse. So I try to now teach that as a parent to my kids with in hopes that they remember some of it
Yeah, so
anyway.
they can help
And
themselves.
yeah, and
Yeah.
And so I guess my other question, um, how does your experience now with mental health education affect how you parent your child?
Ooh, I'm really, really big on emotional intelligence. Really big on labeling feelings, expressing feelings. I know I was raised around a lot of people whenever, you were crying for no reason. So they thought, then you need to stop crying. I really don't ever tell my kid to stop crying unless I know it's like 100% fake. I'm like, okay, you need to stop. We need to go, but even then
Mhm,
it's like, hey, we gotta get out of here. And it's usually like we have to, but most of the time I encourage her, it's okay, you can cry. I understand that you're hurt right now. I understand that you're frustrated. So a lot of feelings being labeled. She's only 2.
mhm,
Um, so there's not like, I mean, there's a lot, but it doesn't get super in depth. I like books that express feelings. She has a lot of like emotional intelligence type of books where they talk about feelings and how to recognize feelings. So it'll show like smiles and happy and a frown and sad. Um, like today we were at a play place and she's playing with friends, and so she was trying to go after her friend's toy and steal their toy, and her friend was obviously not happy. She was pulling the toy back away and she's like, no, and so I would say, look at her face. She does not look happy. You do not need to take her toy, or she can keep her toy, something along those lines.
mhm,
And just kind of any chance that I get to label an emotion and explain it in very simple terms, like look at their face, that's not a smile, that's a frown, they're crying, and then label the emotion that goes
mm,
with it and encourage her to do the same. And she does. When she cries, she says, I cry, I sad. Or I haven't got her to say that she's mad yet. Usually when she gets mad, she gets sad.
mhm.
But she'll say, I'm happy, and she'll say, smile, I'm happy, so, and whenever she does that, I praise her. I'm like, oh, thank you so much for telling me that you're happy. I'm so happy that you're happy, things like that. So just a lot of encouraging.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's wonderful. And just I think too, I mean, kids are more intuitive, I think, just
Mm-hmm.
by nature, but to help them hone on those skills of like reading the people around them and then like how do you process it
Mm-hmm.
after you notice it? Because it's one thing to notice that some people, may look upset or sad or whatever, but then how do you handle it? Like what do you
Mm-hmm.
do with that information? Because that
Mm-hmm.
makes a huge difference. And
Yeah, that's true.
just noticing a kid is sad versus like, oh, my action has caused them to respond in a sad way. So like
Mm-hmm.
I'm contributing to that. Like, it's a whole,
Yeah,
I think that's a whole different thing.
for sure. Yeah,
Um,
and it's very important too.
mhm.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause and like I love that you're explaining that to her now as just a toddler because she's gonna become a kid, a teen
Mm-hmm.
into an adult that's very emotionally aware and hopefully continues to build on all these things you're teaching now.
Yeah, that's my
And there's
hopes.
there's a lot of people who are not in that place, adults and
Yeah.
teenagers now
Mm-hmm.
that really struggle. I know I was in a similar situation growing up of like when my emotions came up, it was like my family didn't know how to handle it. Like my
Mm-hmm.
dad, he's like a crier, but like it didn't know how to handle me in my emotions. Like, you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? So it
Yeah.
wasn't that crying was like frowned upon necessarily, but like
What do I
there
do
was
with that?
yeah, yeah. And
Yeah,
then
that makes
that
sense.
just upset me and and then
Yeah.
it just kind of like turns into this whole cycle of nobody feeling understood or knowing how
Mhm.
to deal with what they're feeling. Isn't that crazy? So then I think too, for me as a parent now, I'm like trying to unlearn. all these things,
Yeah.
reteach myself all these new things, and then like teach my kids the good things,
Hmm.
even though like in the past I've taught them bad patterns because I had the bad patterns myself.
Right, right.
So it's like, how do you do this? Like how it's
Kids,
just it seems daunting, but it's like you just gotta try and figure it out, I guess.
yeah.
You know.
It's really it's a lot easier to switch things up with kids than it is as an adult. Like it might seem really hard for us to do something one day and then completely change that habit the next day. But I mean, like with my kiddo, I didn't realize how bad screen time is. Like I've always heard about it, but I'm like, whatever. I grew up with a lot of screen time. I'm fine. I'm
Hmm.
not. Um, so I'm getting there. But so one day I just decided, okay, we are going to start turning off the TV at this time and this time. And so every day since then, I started it. And the first day, she was like, no, like, I don't want it off yet. And I'm like, well, it's a new thing. We're going to start doing this. But it wasn't even like a big deal. And that was it, just the one time. And even that afternoon, whenever it was time for the TV to be turned off, she didn't say anything. And it's just our new norm. And she just like totally picked up on it. But it's hard for me to remember, like, okay, it's 10 o'clock. It's time to turn off the TV. And sometimes I'm like, oh, what if she does a little, what if she whines a little? I don't want to turn it off right now. Like, it's silly, but it's a lot harder on me than it is on her.
Hmm.
It's Kids are good.
Yeah. I think they get, I mean, I guess because their attention spans, they're easily like can be redirected I say
Hmm.
most of the times because sometimes kids have like they're mad about
It's
this and
set.
they will stay focused for like 5 hours on this thing.
Hmm.
But generally they can get redirected pretty easily
Hmm. I agree.
and handle it smoother.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, okay, so I had a thought and then it just like left my brain, of course. So how do you think we can improve mental health education or incorporate more of that as parents or like as maybe teachers, caregivers to kids, to young people, teenagers? What are ways we can start just
I
incorporating more of that language that like we didn't really grow up with?
honestly think one of the first and biggest steps is to just be more open and honest about how you yourself are feeling and how you've been affected. Awareness is so big right now, and it's really helping a lot. Sorry, my cat is now wanting to sit and purr. um, but a lot of times mental health struggles can feel really lonely. Um, and so talking about it, just being open about your own feelings, your own struggles, and sharing that with your children. Like, if you're having a hard time, right now, mommy's angry. Okay. Mommy needs to go take some breaths and I need to focus on something else. And I personally, I do that. And my kid, she's seen me cry. And so she'll look at me, and it was before, she could talk. I would tell her, mommy's sad, mommy's crying. I need to cry right now. I'm having some big feelings, and now
Mhm.
she's voicing it herself. So I would just, make it a normal thing. I
Mhm.
mean, if you feel the need, if you feel like something is, really going on in your household, you feel like maybe your child is really struggling with depression or something, then, pull them to the side, sit down and have a conversation. But if you're wanting to just normalize it, then make it normal. Don't set aside a specific time or a specific discussion. Whenever you're angry, express that you're angry, express why you're angry, express how you're going to calm yourself down, and sometimes why you need to calm yourself down.
Mhm.
I'm really overstimulated right now. I need to take some breaths and calm myself down, because if I don't, I could get too angry and maybe throw something. If you're a thrower, you might throw something.
Mhm.
I don't want to throw anything, so I'm going to take some deep breaths instead. Just, make it part of your normal conversation. And doing that will let your children know that it is normal and that they can do the same thing. They don't have to wait for a certain time of day, every day at 5 o'clock. Oh, now I can express my feelings,
Hmm.
It's any time that I feel the need to express them, I can.
Yeah, that's great. I think I really like that suggestion, and I like how you said to like let them know what you're feeling and why. Like you
Hmm.
said, if I get too angry, I might want to throw something, or I might want to yell, or
Yeah.
whatever. And I think that in itself also normalizes that everybody has a thing that when they get pushed, it comes out like that. Like, and not,
Hmm.
it's not ideal, but like people have limits, and I think that just is part of being a human, is that
Hmm.
eventually we're gonna come to a limit and freak out.
Yeah.
And I think it's unfortunate that like in our society now, people normalize recording people in public when they're going through difficult experiences. I mean, yeah, they might
Hmm.
be freaking out and they might be acting horribly, and it's not that it's okay, but if you look at it from the outside, what causes somebody to freak out in public
Hmm.
and cuss out a freaking cashier or whatever? It's
Yeah.
like what got them there, you know?
Hmm.
And usually
And
it's, yeah, being overstimulated or overstressed, not taking care of themselves, in a way to like calm back
yeah,
down enough to regulate a little. And then it comes out at people, like either
going
people
viral
around
on
them.
TikTok.
Yeah. And it's sad. Like
Yeah.
it's sad that so, people are in vulnerable states. And while their
Hmm.
actions may be bad, like, it doesn't mean like how they're behaving is okay,
Yeah,
but it's a vulnerable situation, and
it is.
I don't like
It's
that.
one thing to record for your safety and for evidence, but don't
Yeah.
record it for entertainment. Don't
Yeah.
post it for entertainment. If you feel unsafe and you feel like you need footage in case something happens, by all means, record. But don't pull out
Mhm.
your phone thinking, oh, I'm going to post this on TikTok and go viral. Like, that's not okay.
Yeah.
Why? And if that is what you go viral for, like, why would you want to go viral for that? Why not go viral for something in your own uniqueness?
Hmm.
Because you're not going to see someone throwing a fit every day. I mean, you might, but can't rely on that.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, that's a very good distinction, for your safety, or for proof of like somebody escalating a situation, or, an
Hmm.
altercation or whatever, definitely make sure you're safe and have that. But yeah, like you said, for entertainment purposes, that's not
Yeah.
that's not cool. And that has something to say about the people recording for entertainment purposes too,
Hmm.
that they find it to be funny or
Yeah.
something when someone's struggling,
Yeah.
and that
If you
sucks.
find pleasure in someone else's pain in that way, that's not okay.
No.
That's a low level on your ascension there.
Hmm. Oh
But
yeah.
that's all that's for me. It's like I'm one of those people where I try not to let other people's faults bother me because I have like a real like justice in me. Like if someone's doing wrong, I want them to know that they're wrong. That's how I was. But that caused a lot of anxiety and depression and anger in me in itself. And so
Hmm.
a lot of things I'm like, that's where they are in life. That's where they are. I'm a spiritual person. So I'm like, it's where they are in their learning. And unfortunately
Yeah.
it's a lower area and like that sucks for them, but I can't do the work for them.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. And then the other, excuse me, the other person might not be ready to receive
Hmm.
your input
Yeah.
either. You might say like, hey, maybe you should stop doing that. Like, I think that's not going to help the situation, but it doesn't mean they're
Hmm.
going to like understand your
Yeah.
perspective either.
And that can make it escalate in itself.
Hmm.
Like they need to realize, hey, this is not okay and I need to change my behavior.
Hmm. Definitely.
Mhm. Yeah.
I did have another, I guess, yeah, this is more about the resilience thing. And you kind of touched on it too with COVID happening. Obviously, that was very hard for
Hmm.
everyone in multiple ways. Aside from the actual like people getting sick and passing
Yeah.
away and loved ones or friends. It was just very heavy collectively, and
Hmm.
people felt lonely.
The isolation was
That and
real.
yeah, it definitely affected me. And I was already
Hmm.
more of a homebody in general, but like
Hmm.
even since then, like I still, excuse me, struggle with like feeling like I don't have friendships like around
Hmm.
me that are strong. I have a lot of acquaintances.
Yeah,
So it's not that I
same.
don't talk to anybody, but like the tight knit friendships that
Hmm.
like I just don't have that anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, COVID
I feel like that
definitely
comes with
didn't
motherhood
help.
too, though.
Yeah, yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Because you're it's a whole lifestyle change. Um,
That was a big one for me too,
mhm,
for
yeah.
sure. Becoming a mom, that was a whole new level.
Yeah, and it's hard when I don't know if this was the case for you, if like the people around you were not mothers or maybe didn't quite
Mhm.
understand what you were going through.
Yeah.
Then maybe there's some sort of disconnect there of like the
Hmm.
people I would have went to for support, like they don't quite get it anymore. So like it just feels different. I
Yeah.
kind of had, I mean, I had knew some people that were moms, but I was a mom pretty young. So like a lot of my friends that I had at the time, like they were not
Hmm.
mothers. So like it was just weird.
Yeah. Most of my friends are moms now. Um, and the ones that I had at the time whenever I was pregnant, they were moms as well. But it's still like it's all so different. Like every kid is so unique, every pregnancy is so unique. So even though they were moms, they still couldn't, relate to everything. And
Mhm.
there's whenever I first had my kiddo, it was like there were so many just like I don't know kind of answers. There were so many things I was struggling with, and it was you just got to get through it type of thing. You just got to figure it out. You'll get it eventually, and I did. Um, but it was hard. It was really
Yeah.
hard. Even coming from other experienced people, they still were like, "Yeah, I don't know what you should do."
And it's like, and in situations like that, you want some sort of reassurance, right? That like
Hmm.
something's gonna be okay, but
That was
it's
kind of the
yeah.
only reassurance. They're like, "You'll be all right. You'll get this."
Uh-huh. Yeah. And it's easy, at least for me, like when my kids were young, I was definitely in that like survival mode,
Hmm.
zombie, like disassociating, like just very much like I'm going through the motions. And
Yeah,
now and I look back now and it's like, man, that sucks that those years I could have spent in a better headspace and in a better relationship with them.
that was like my whole
Um,
first year.
it's rough to look back on that. And now mine are older now, but that just kind of like reaffirms the whole like awareness of yourself, taking care of
Yeah.
yourself so that it doesn't get to that point.
Hmm. Yeah, and I mean, a lot of things are a learning experience, and like it sucks. Like I say, like the whole first year of my kid's life was so hard on me, like unbelievably, like my darkest times. And that's unfortunate because that's a lot of people's favorite. They love the newborn stage, and I'm like, I don't want another one. Like I love her. She's absolutely amazing. And I mean, she's, my whole world. But that was really hard, and it was a really big change, and it sucks, and I used to get really caught up in it, but it's important to not, because whenever you're getting caught up in it in the present moment, you're taking away from your present moment. You're just adding to the time that you have spent disconnected from your child. So
Mhm.
you realize your fault and you just do better. And then you
Yeah.
can reflect like, wow, right now I'm doing so much better than what I was then. And that's how you reflect on it. Don't reflect on, wow, I was so bad back then.
Mhm.
Just say I'm better now.
Yeah,
That's how I like to do it.
that's very impactful for me. That's something I will take with me because,
Yeah.
yeah, there's been a lot of times where it's like I look back and I'm like, I was a piece of crap. Like I was not
Yeah.
present. And like,
But you're
I,
better now.
yeah. Well, and then just the reframing of the language, but also
Hmm.
just the awareness of where, which is funny because it's been a theme in the past like 3 days of like how we have not been present and want to be more present in our life. So we're like figuring out how to change our, phone habits and technology
Hmm.
usage and all these things to
That's
be
big.
more present in our everyday life. So this is just coming up again in a different
Yeah.
way, but yeah, just learning how to take what I'm learning and like follow through
Hmm.
and just know that I'm making small steps in the direction that I want to go.
Yeah. That's something I struggle with as well. Um, I know a lot of people, they experience their setbacks. And something that I like to do is I don't call it a setback. I don't allow myself to think I'm being set back in my progress. I like to think of it as a pause. Right now, I am pausing. I can't, give 110% today. I can only give 30%. So I'm going to pause. But you still have all of the things that you've learned. You still have all the progress that you've made. So you're not going back. You're just taking a little pause.
Mhm. That's a great way to look at that. And
Thanks.
it's like a relief, man, because it's easy to get caught up in like, oh, I'm going backwards. Um,
Mhm.
and in
That's what it
reality,
seems like.
you might not be going back. Yeah, it might just be like I'm trying to do like a visual thing.
Yeah, no, you're
Um,
not going back.
you know
You're
what I
just,
mean? You're not like going back, but it's like
yeah,
different, but you're still going forward. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean? Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. Every day that you're not, falling back into your, bad habits or whatever, you're still going forward. Just
Mhm.
because you're not, 100% that day doesn't mean anything. And even then, you can't give the same level every single day. I mean, as we are personally, as women, we have a lot of fluctuation going on and, our hormones and the things in our body. We cannot give that same amount of energy every single day.
Mhm.
So if you are waking up with only 30% in your battery, but you're still giving 30%, like you're giving your 100% that you woke up with that day.
Mhm.
And it's like the spoon theory. Some people wake up with 10 spoons and, it takes them one to get in the shower, one to eat their meal, one to get to work. Some people wake up with 5 spoons and it takes them two to get in the shower. It takes them three to get to work, and there's a lot of comparison, especially with social media.
Mhm.
Because, people are sharing those days that they're super energetic and stuff, and that's all they're sharing. And so you think this person, that's all they're doing, but it's not, because
Yeah.
we all have our ups and downs.
Mhm.
And that's been a big part of my realization that's helped me a lot too.
Yeah. Yeah,
Hmm.
everybody's human. Everybody goes through, like you said, fluctuations. Hormones definitely play a part in it I mean, for men
Hmm.
too, but
Yeah,
for
I don't know much
women,
about their hormones though.
and me either. Um, but yeah, especially like as our cycle changes, we know the feeling of when we're crashing because or either we're on our period or it's coming and it just feels like, yeah,
Mhm.
we're like depleted. And then other
Yeah,
days,
literally.
um,
It's like
around
top of the
ovulation
world.
time generally, but yeah, then we're like
Yeah.
super like I'm gonna do everything and you actually have
Yup.
the mental and physical capacity to do all the
Mhm.
things you want. Yeah.
Yeah, those are great days,
Hmm.
but we can't have that every day.
No, there's no way. And like that such sets such an unrealistic expectation, I think,
Mm,
on anyone, but yeah, women, I guess, because it's easier for me to like compare with women
yeah.
of, like you said, if people are only sharing their best days, then it's like it's easy for me to be like, oh, is something wrong with me because I'm not like that productive all the time, and that's not true. But I think just as humans, our brains kind of go to like negativity first.
I mean, it's the way we're just
Hmm.
kind of programmed,
Yeah,
really. Oh,
yeah, it's rough, but I'm thankful that it's I don't know, my brain's like going everywhere because it's like I'm thankful that social media is around in the sense that
yes,
it can help so many people. You can share and learn.
it's the yin and yang.
Um, but it's also like completely awful and people really hurt over it.
Hmm. Yeah, it's all, I mean, it's really what you put into it,
Mhm.
the algorithm serves you really. It's like on my Instagram, I get on Instagram and all I see is, mental health stuff and uplifting stuff and inspirational messages and things like that. And then,
Mhm.
I go onto maybe my personal TikTok and I'm seeing, all the stuff that I personally like, all the Pokemon and the book talk stuff and, all that stuff.
Mhm.
And so if you're someone who's set on a negative mind and you're only interacting with negative things, it's just going to show you more negative things and you're in a terrible spiral. Because
Yeah.
I've been there. It's like whenever, the stuff that's happening on the other side of the world, it's absolutely horrific and terrible. But whenever you start liking those posts, that's all you're going to see on your
Mhm.
feed. And that's overwhelming. That's really
It
hard,
totally is.
especially as someone who has no control over any of that. All I can do is share a
Yeah.
post or something. And I mean, that's the same for a lot of things. You start getting into the conspiracy stuff. I love conspiracies. But whenever that's all I'm interacting with, that's overwhelming. And then I start thinking I'm going to die tomorrow.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
it's all what you put into it. You interact with motivational, inspirational things, and that's what you'll get more of. It's the same in
Mhm.
life too.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so easy. Yeah, like you said, to and my brain is like everywhere, but it's like you gotta have a balance of like being aware of current events or whatever else is happening, but not letting it take over your,
Consume.
yeah, because then like you said, you spiral, you're in a bad headspace and
Hmm.
you can't spread love into the world
Yeah.
if you're in a really bad
Consumed.
spot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I've been there. I've been consumed by all of that, and I see. I talk about what I know about, and if that's all I'm seeing, that's all I'm going to talk about. And I like to spread love and positivity, and so that's what I try to interact with. That's what I try to put my energy into, and that's what I'm hoping to get back.
Yeah. Yeah, for real. And that just, um, I think too, like the more everybody spreads love and kindness in their own way to the people around them, like that's gonna,
Hmm.
raise the vibration of the world because it does influence the people around you.
It does. It
And they might
does.
have had a really bad day and then like someone was nice to them for 5 seconds, like it
It
would
would
help,
change it instantly. Yeah.
And oh man, I did have this you were talking about the algorithm of
Hmm.
social media and how like the more you interact with things, that's more of what will show to you. And how me and my husband have been talking more about being present and just noticing like how much people are not present. Just like if
Hmm.
we're out and about, people are just very checked out or like, I mean, it
Yeah.
is the phones, like it is. I don't, there's no way around that. Like that's what it is.
Yeah.
And
We're
people
all
are
word.
on their phone, checking their phone. Um, and it's not that like they're in and of itself not useful tools because they can be, but the
Hmm.
majority of people are not using it as a tool.
Yeah. And it's all moderation too.
Hmm.
Anything can be bad if you
Yeah.
overuse it. Anything, even healthy food.
Yeah.
1 apple a day is good. You eat 20, you're going to be sick, you
Hmm.
know?
You're not
So,
getting
same
balance.
with,
Yeah.
yeah, everything in balance. I mean, I can use my phone for good. I use my phone. That's how I work. That's
Hmm.
how, I post on social media. That's how I talk with potential clients and stuff. But if I'm glued to it all day long, I'm not going to get my house clean. I'm not going to get myself or my child fed. I'm not going to, do the laundry. So it's all about balance. You could be
Mhm.
doing good things, but too much of it, you're going to leave other things out.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Hmm.
And I think giving ourselves space to sit with our thoughts more. Like I had noticed
Hmm.
that just today, like I used to be, I'd get up, get the dog out and all these things. And then like when it's time for me to do my quiet time in the morning, I'd put on like ambient music or something. And then basically I'm like auditory stimulus all the time, like from that moment on. And the past couple of days I've been doing it like just with nothing. I've just been kind of sitting and quiet or like
Hmm.
listening to the birds outside, um, just changing up the routine. And I noticed that that removal of stimulus really helped me feel a lot more calm,
Hmm.
even if the stimulus wasn't like stressful, like it was like super chill music and like I like it, but just I didn't realize until I took it away how much it helped to just
Hmm.
like not have it
Yeah.
on,
I
even if it's
mean,
just for that one like routine that I changed. It did feel different.
yeah,
Hmm.
because each bit of stimulus takes, I mean, you only have so much stimuli. So if you have all the stimulus stimulating your stimuli, then it's taking away certain parts for other things. That's why whenever you take a test in school, everything's quiet. You know, you're quiet and you're focused on one thing. They would sometimes have music playing, but that would mess with me. I couldn't handle that.
Hmm.
I'd be like, can I go in the hallway or something? Like,
Yeah.
what? I mean, and even you go to an operating room and it's quiet. They only say what they need to say because it's important to focus on things. So if you're trying to sit back and focus on your mind, then turning off the music will let you focus more.
Hmm. Hmm. Definitely. And I noticed too for me, like feeling overstimulated
Mhm.
and not making the connections of what is making me feel overstimulated.
Yeah.
Um, it just was kind of like, I can't believe I didn't notice that till
Hmm.
now type of thing. Um, and it was definitely like for me, the phone use, the having like background noise all the time, like a podcast or YouTube or music and like those things aren't bad, but like if it's all day and I'm like blocking out the things around me where I'm
Hmm.
not just like doing them with presence, like being
Hmm.
grounded in them, then no wonder I feel frazzled and overwhelmed
Hmm.
and then like lash out.
Ungrounded.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because I'm not in my body or like I'm not
Yeah.
experiencing things for what they are.
Hmm.
It's like that
I definitely,
halfway.
yep, I struggle with that a lot of times. On weekends, I'm not as like active with cleaning and stuff. I do a lot more sitting around cuddling with the kiddo, which usually whenever I cuddle with her, oftentimes I'll scroll on my phone too, because I don't like what she watches on TV, but whatever. Um, but a lot of times on weekends, by the end of the day, I realize like I'm disassociating. Like I'm not feeling normal. And so I gotta put the phone down. I gotta go outside. I gotta walk around, take some deep breaths, or just focus on my actual surroundings. Like, because whenever I feel disassociated, I feel literally kind of out of body in a way.
Hmm.
Um, it's almost, like if you're on a drug but not a drug, like, but it's really weird. You literally feel slightly out of body and you
Yeah.
feel like you're not all there. And it's really, really weird because I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, I haven't had any recent surgeries, like I haven't taken any meds, like why do I feel like this?
Hmm.
And you're disassociated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's good to bring awareness to that because that's not really something I ever knew, like vocabulary for that, or like
Hmm.
what does that mean? How does it feel
Hmm.
until recently? So
Same.
Yeah, I think that's really good to speak on because I've definitely
Mhm.
I felt that for many years.
Yeah,
Definitely even now I still get in places like that sometimes if I'm not, you know, aware of myself. It is like an out of body
yeah.
experience.
I used to
Really.
feel that and think like I'm not feeling well. I need to sit here and not do anything. Like what if I stand up and do something and I pass out? And so it would be like a spiral because I'm like,
Mhm.
I'm not feeling right. I need to sit here. Like, no, you're disassociated. You need to get up. And every time I would feel better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like do something that will ground you back into your body again, back into like
Hmm.
what is around you.
Yep.
I like to do um you know the 5 4 3 2 1, like 5 things you
Hmm.
see, 4 things you can hear and like go through your
Yeah.
senses. um or just like if it's like I'm doing the dishes or like taking
Yep.
a shower or just like whatever task, just
Hmm.
trying to focus on like, okay, what is actually happening now? Like
Yep.
I feel the water on my hands, the soap, you know,
Mindfulness is huge.
whatever, stuff like that.
I love mindfulness myself. That was a big part in what's helped me.
What are some, like, I guess, starting points you would recommend to people who want to work on their mental health? Just generally, maybe they never
Yeah.
really learned about it before or has never really tried anything mindfulness related.
Um, Being in the present moment has made a big difference. I know depression is oftentimes caused by being stuck in the past, and anxiety is oftentimes caused by being worried about the future. And happiness occurs right now. And so just trying not to be overwhelmed by things that have happened because it is what it is. Like things that have
Mhm.
happened, they've already happened. If you got to pay for those consequences now, then do what you got to do. But the more you can just live in the moment, the happier you're going to be. That's, I mean, to like sum it up, everything that I've learned in years, live in the moment.
Mhm.
There's a quote that I heard of whenever I was in my teens and I loved it. And it's, life is not measured by the amount of breaths you take, but by the moments that take your breath away. And it's really big,
Mhm.
and you got to focus on those moments and be present.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I think I've heard that too a long time ago, but yeah. Yeah, that's so true. And like, what would you say if someone is in the current moment it's not happy, like they feel
Mm.
stuck, they feel like this is not what I actually want? How can they learn to find happiness in being present when they're not happy in the present?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
So- Yeah. So that is a hard one because, like, how can you be happy whenever, if, say, you just lost a loved one, you know, you, oh, what's happening here? Okay, sorry. My phone. It's hard to be like, you don't want to suppress your feelings. Like, if you say you just lost a loved one or something, grieve and have those moments. You don't have to be happy 24/7. That's not a rule, and we don't have to live by it. If you are feeling sadness, feel your sadness. If you're feeling angry, feel your anger in healthy ways. Obviously, you're going to want to cope, write down your feelings, and things like that. If you want to move towards happiness, I would say focus on the goals that would get you there. And there's, a smart acronym like the SMART. I'm terrible at remembering each one, but
Mhm.
it's like, measurable, timely, accessible, stuff like that.
Mhm.
And so make sure that your goals are attainable and start working on the small steps to attain that goal and celebrate each and every step. If you want to save $1,000, start setting aside $10 whenever you can. And whenever you reach that 100, maybe go get yourself a candy bar or something. It's a very minimal thing to relate to, but you
Mhm.
get the idea. Like,
Yeah.
Get your big goal, break it down, and celebrate each step that you accomplish, and that will work your way to happiness. And realizing that things don't have to be perfect to be happy. There was a time where I would sit on my couch, and if there were things all over my floor, I wouldn't be happy. Like, to me, my house is a mess. I need to clean it. But whenever you can change your mindset and the way that you view things, I'm looking around now. Those bears are all over the floor there because my kid was using them to count and sort and learn. Like, that's her learning there. There's
Mhm.
another fine motor skill toy that she had out and was working on. I have a hopscotch taped on my floor, and in my fixed mindset days, I'd be like, oh my gosh, this is a mess. I need to get it clean.
Yeah.
But now I'm like, wow, look at how much my kid was learning before her nap, you know?
Mhm.
So mindset, working towards goals, living in the moment pays off.
Mhm. Yeah, those are great suggestions. And I like the celebrating steps
Mhm.
along the way because that builds momentum and it's easy to be like, especially if it's like a lofty goal,
Mhm.
if you're it might feel so daunting to like get
Mhm.
to the end, but if you're kind of breaking it down in sections, then it doesn't feel as overwhelming to get
Little
there.
steps add up.
Mhm. Yeah.
Sure.
I would say one more thing before we head off, to go back on feeling or building resiliency, like we were talking about COVID came up and that brought up a lot in people. And basically, I think the overwhelming theme with that is just like, how do you build resiliency? How do you like build yourself up when like things keep going poorly, awfully, where it's just like so defeating?
Mhm.
What are ways you can build on obstacles or build yourself up after facing obstacles?
Don't give up, because every time that you don't give up, you are building yourself. Every day that you get through it, like, it may suck, but you are building, you are learning. And try to see the learning experience that is in front of you rather than living in like the pain that it's causing you. I mean, I know you like to work out,
Mm-hmm.
and how much does it hurt whenever you're pushing through that last rep, and you're trying to get your new PR? Like, it hurts and it sucks, and you have to push yourself through. But once you get it and you look in the mirror and you see that muscle toning up, or you feel your next set isn't as hard,
Mm-hmm.
you realize that pain paid off. And
Yeah.
I'm sure you might get to it, but because I personally, I used to love weightlifting, but eventually you learn to love the pain. You push through it and you might be
Yeah.
grunting and sweating, but you got a big old smile on your face as you're pushing up your new personal record. Um, and so whenever you see those challenges as a learning experience rather than something sent to tear you down, and you push through it and you get through it, the more you get through, the more you realize that you can get through. Whenever I was in my teens and people were making fun of me at school, or even I started in elementary school, that seemed like the worst thing ever. But now, if I go out and about and I hear someone, say something behind my back or whatever, like, it literally rolls off my shoulder. Like, I could not care less. Like, your words are nothing. But 20 years ago, that wasn't the case.
Mhm.
I built resiliency to people's words. Their words don't affect me, because I know who I am as a person. I know that I'm not what you're saying. So it's just learning and accepting the teachings.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That was great. That was very well said.
Thank
And
you.
like I'm gonna have to go back and get that quote, man. That was such a good quote.
Please
I
send me the
will
clip. I'll post it.
yeah, I know, right? That was dude, sometimes like just it's like the perfect delivery of words. So yeah, that was a
Thank
good
you.
one. Um yeah, and I guess that kind of goes with the celebrating each step, like just it's like the little things. I guess a common theme with this
Mhm.
too, is just like
The little
little
things.
steps give you the momentum you need to keep going.
Mhm.
And sometimes it's like you just need to get out of bed and change out of your pajamas, and that's all you can muster.
And that's okay.
And that's still
It's the
still a
little
step.
things.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's the little things. You take everything a little bit at a time. You do things a little bit of a time. You appreciate the little things, a little at a time. Like everything
Hmm.
is just a little at a time. Growth is a little at a time. If you feel like you're really stuck in life, don't expect to be better by next week. You know, do a little at a time.
Yeah.
I've been at this for 2.5 years and I'm still going. I still have areas that I'm not so proud of, but I'm working, I'm learning, I'm accepting the teachings and I'm going with it.
Hmm. That's so true, man, because it's just learning to realize that it might feel like it's taking a long time.
Mhm.
And then you look back, and that's similar with exercise, right? Or changing
Yeah.
the eating healthier or whatever. Like
Mhm.
in the moment, you might be like, this is not working. I don't
Yeah.
notice any changes. I look the same as I did 3 years ago, and you're like frustrated or whatever. And then you might look at a picture you took from like now and then the year prior, and you're like, oh, I've actually made progress that I couldn't ever see like day to
Mhm.
day. But
Absolutely.
yeah, in
And
the long run.
something to remember too is a lot of our traumas and a lot of our pain took years to build on. I was suffering for, almost 25 years before I really started to heal myself. And wounds take a lot longer to heal than they do to create. I mean, think about when you break your arm or if somebody gets a slash from something. That happens in an instant, but it can take months to heal. And the same goes with your mentality. It takes a lot longer. Well, I mean, not entirely, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah,
It takes a while.
yeah. And that just, it reminds you to give yourself patience and
Hmm.
caring, just like you would if someone was physically hurt, like they would
Hmm.
need compassion and
Yeah.
understanding
Because it
and,
is physical. Yeah, your brain is physical. I know a
yeah,
lot of people are like, mental illness is an imaginary illness. It's invisible, but it's still a physical illness. Your brain is a physical piece of you and it affects you physically.
yeah,
So it's not as, you may not be able to look at somebody and say, like, oh, yeah, they got depression. Oh, yeah, they got anxiety. But it still very much is physical.
yeah. Well, and if you think of it too, those symptoms translate into your physical body
Hmm.
as well. Lack of energy, maybe physically being in pain, things like that. So it is
Yeah,
connected.
it is absolutely. I feel like we could go on.
I know we gotta
Honest.
cut it off. We're
Yeah,
we're
sorry.
getting, oh no, it's okay. That was a great conversation. I'm
Yeah,
really
I
happy
agree.
you got to come on here with me.
Yeah. Yeah, I love your points of views and the questions you ask and yeah,
Thank
it's
you.
good. Yeah, thank
Thank
you.
you. I'd like to give you a chance to share, your social media and what
Mhm.
you have to offer so people can get in touch with you and your podcast as well.
Yeah, so I am Gentle Growth with Ivy everywhere. I'm on Instagram the most, and my podcast is on Spotify and YouTube. It's like originally on Spotify, so and then it like automatically posts to YouTube. So there's a little couple hour delay. But yeah, and right now I'm releasing like 2 podcasts a week. So it's been going crazy, but yeah, I love my podcast. And if anybody's interested in any sessions with me, I do offer free discovery calls, and you can book that on gentlegrowthwithivy.com. And on gentlegrowthwithivy.com, you can find all the links to my socials and my podcast. I have some digital products and stuff too.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we're gonna end the episode. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.